The Honourable Member for Peterborough-Kawartha.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you so much. This is a really important bill, and always it is a true honour to stand in the House and represent the people who elected me of Peterborough-Kawartha. And a lot of members, I've been here for 2 years now, and the slowness of this place is frustrating, and people suffering, and a lot of people reach out to us as members of Parliament who are often in the depths, or they're at their worst by the time they get to us. And we've seen an increase of victims' rights been eroded, and victims are really, really suffering, and we need to do change. And this bill is a very positive movement of something that can be done, and I'm very honored to stand and speak on it. And to the member from Victoria who brought forth this bill, who also shared her very personal experience as to why she created this private member's bill, is very motivating to see that it comes from a place of humanity to make the world a better place. So the bill is C-322, and it is an act to amend the Criminal Code controlling or coercive conduct. Now I'm going to do a little bit of the housekeeping stuff, and then I'm going to get into more stories to explain this, and personal stories really about this, because I think most people, or especially women in this House, have a lot of experience, or know somebody that has experienced this. So what does it mean? So the private member's bill is going to amend the criminal code, in particular section 264 of the criminal code, by adding the following offense. Everyone who commits an offense who repeatedly or continuously engages in controlling or coercive conduct towards a person with whom they are connected that they know or ought to know could, in all the circumstances, reasonably be expected to have a significant impact on that person, and that has such an impact on that person. So basically it's giving language to coercive control. This is relatively new in the criminal code. We've seen it happen in a couple of other places. 2015, we've seen it happen in England, and Scotland and Ireland, I believe, were 2019. So this is the first time that this has sort of happened. What is coercive control? I think for some people they may not actually know what this is, but they do know what it is. They just might not know the name of it. Many people would know it probably from Hollywood movies, actually. Alice Darling is a fairly new movie that really delves into this. For my era, people may remember the movie Sleeping with the Enemy, or there was a great Netflix series called Maid. And I'm actually going to tell you a story of my friend and what happened to her and what she had to do to get out of her relationship. And I remember being on the phone with her many times, and she said, well, he's not hitting me, so it's not that bad. And I said, okay, but you don't have any money in your bank, you're not allowed to go where you want to go, you don't have your own phone, and you're afraid to leave your house. That's abuse. And that's where coercive control comes into this. And that is ultimately what it is. If there are women watching this, and men, anybody who slowly takes away your finances and doesn't let you share a credit card, or you can't go buy things on your own, and it's like a slow and steady kind of thing, that is coercive control. And that's what this bill does. It builds it into the criminal code to make it a criminal offense. And, I talked to a couple people before I spoke today to get their thoughts on it, and I'm going to share their feedback. But before I do, I want to share what happened to my friend that I speak of. And so she knew she needed to get out of that relationship, but she couldn't. She couldn't leave him. She and her children were hostages in their own home. She had no money. She had no way to get out. He would take her car keys. She couldn't leave. She literally had to get a burner phone. She had to stash money away that she got somewhere else. She had to leave when he went to work. It was a Hollywood movie, but real life. And I want to tell you that today she's doing amazing. she went and she got her master's in education and she built herself up from nothing. So it is possible to escape, to anybody who's living out there in this reality. Because often most victims don't even know they're a victim because it happens so slowly. And the abuser makes that person feel like they are nothing. And I have some stories that were written into me, and I want to share them with you as well. But before I do that, so when I asked a former prosecutor what he thought of this bill, he said, Michelle, anytime we can improve access to justice for victims, that is a win. Coercive control is an element of other offenses, and this bill would be really helpful in preventing the often, sadly, inevitable escalation that happens in domestic violence. So what's so great about this is it's a prevention end, because often you can't even go to the police, or you don't want to go to the police until there's a physical assault. And that's the slow progression of coercive control, right? When you aren't allowed to wear what you want to wear, and it progresses. So this bill will help victims feel empowered to come forward. I want to read to you what my chief from Peterborough Police Services wrote to me when I asked him about his thoughts on this bill. This is a message from my chief, Stu Betts, and this is his quote. It would mean that there would be recognition of the fact that many crimes are only reported after a long history of coercive control, and victims of those crimes may feel a greater sense of vindication, and that someone recognizes that the history has caused increased harm. It also recognizes that some of those engaged in this type of behavior essentially operate with the knowledge that their victims are likely not to report, if ever. I believe it may also go a long way toward the work we do to assist victims of crime. There was a horrific story out of Pembroke, and I don't even like to say the murderer's name because I feel like it gives them the attention that they actually feed off of, so I'm only going to refer to the victims. But there were 3 women killed, point-blank shotgun killings. 36-year-old Anastasia Kuzik, 48-year-old Natalie Warmerdam, and Carol Culleton. They were all murdered within the space of less than an hour by a man that everybody knew was dangerous. The police, everybody. And yet, nobody could do anything. This is a very simple, tangible solution to put into the criminal code to help victims. I want to read this message to you. I asked folks at home if they wanted to write into me to share any experiences and to contribute to my speech today. And this woman wrote into me, and I'm not going to use her name to protect her, but she gave me permission to share with you. How much time do I have, Mr. Speaker? 2 minutes? Okay. I think it's important to read this into the record. As a mom who's been separated 4 years now and from someone who has gone through hell with an ex-spouse, I feel this bill will hopefully help people who go through these types of situations. I left a 13-year marriage because of emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse 4 years ago, which took me a lot of strength and courage to do. My mental state was drastically going downhill, and I knew I had to finally leave, which was the hardest decision I ever had to make. I was having unpleasant thoughts. With support and help, I managed. I thought I was breaking free and things would get better, but as you are probably aware, the post-separation abuse escalated and got worse, just what we spoke of, Mr. Speaker. After 4 years, I am still dealing with coercive control and emotional and verbal abuse. I want to read this part, and it is so profound. It's emotional, actually. I would rather be punched in the face than have to go through years of emotional, verbal, and psychological abuse. I have talked to the police in the past a couple times about situations, but all they could do was talk to him and warn him. Told me there is nothing they can do until he actually physically hurts me. The effects and damage of emotional and psychological abuse is horrible and exhausting mentally and physically. After 4 years of being separated, I am still trying to find peace and build myself back up. It is very hard to do when you are still being abused, but with time and a lot of help and support, it is possible. Putting this in place would help. Obviously, you can see we fully support this bill, and it has been put forward before. Justice Minister, who is no longer the Justice Minister, the former Justice Minister, agreed with this, but nothing was done. victims have taken a backseat repeatedly in the last 8 years of this Prime Minister. This is a solid, yes, we will do something. Yes, we see you. Yes, we recognize the implications and dangers of coercive control. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope everyone in this House supports this bill.